Welcome back into the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy Rocky Magana. Kramer Sansone in the background, helping us keep this thing moving tonight. The Kansas City Chiefs get a big win on Sunday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. They win in overtime 20-17. And Rocky, this was a game filled with a lot of ups and downs. I was kind of, emotionally, I feel like I and you and Kramer and, Chiefs fans all over Kansas City were all over the place tonight because it was a very frustrating game. It was hard to watch at points early on in the contest. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and the Tennessee Titans don't. And Patrick Mahomes just said enough is enough late in the fourth quarter of this game, and he put the team on his back and carried them to an overtime victory. He had 63 rushing yards in this game, which was by far the most rushing yards of any player for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs' three running backs combined for a total of 19 rushing yards, and Mahomes had 63. He carries them to a victory in a game that kind of felt at times like the Indianapolis Colts game where they easily could have lost this thing. But inevitably, Patrick Mahomes said, I'm not losing to the Titans again. And we're leaving Arrowhead Stadium with a win tonight.
Oh my gosh, Steven Serda. I mean, yeah, I am at one of those moments right now where my nerves are just completely gone after watching this entire game. But yeah, no, this is one of those things where people often compare Mahomes to like Jordan, right? Like they say like, oh, he's the Jordan of the NFL. This was one of those moments where Mahomes literally just said like, if I have to do it on my own, then I'm doing it on my own. And he literally put the team on his back and physically carried the team forward to victory. This was an amazing outing by Mahomes. It was so up and down. I just feel like there's so many different layers to this game and so many different storylines within this game that it's almost hard to even like encapsulate it and touch on each one of them. I mean, you have, the run defense being so porous early on, and then, but then in the second half, them just figuring out, if you just block Malik Willis from scrambling outside of the pocket and then key on Derrick Henry, they can't do anything, right? And so the hats off overtime. That front four in overtime dominated for the Chiefs. Oh my gosh, Carlos Dunlap, Colin Saunders, Chris Jones, everybody. I mean, that obviously Mahomes' play is the reason why we won, but the game was secured by our front four, and that is how you shut the door and you end a game.
So you mentioned how they were playing defense in the first half and how they were kind of addressing Malik Willis being a quarterback over Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. It was a weird game. Derrick Henry had 0 rushing yards in the first quarter of this game and then goes off for like 92 and 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. And they made those adjustments at halftime. And I wonder how much the preparation this week, like when you see a team like do what the Tennessee Titans did this week with quarterback Ryan Tannehill, where it seemed like all signs were pointing to him not playing, but the Titans dragged it all the way out until, 45 minutes before kickoff, whether or not they were going to rule him out. And we heard from the Chiefs earlier this week. They said, we're preparing for this game as if Ryan Tannehill is their starting quarterback. And so I do think it changed kind of as the game went on, how they were approaching it, because we saw Malik Willis's mobility and the issues that it was creating and how that freed up Derrick Henry. And man, I'm glad they made adjustments. I think Spags, low key, has been really good at that in the halftime locker rooms this season, kind of making adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. And then obviously down the stretch, they just don't have the pass catchers to keep up with the Chiefs in Tennessee when they have to play from behind. And we saw that on that final drive of the game with the Chiefs defense, just Malik Willis couldn't get rid of the ball. And so he just got sacked on back-to-back plays and the Chiefs were all over him. So credit to the defense. But yeah, I mean, this one was all about Patrick Mahomes and he was just not leaving Arrowhead without a win on Sunday night. So as frustrating as it was, there's some holes we can pick in this performance. They got the win, and that's all that really matters.
I mean, you walked away with a victory. A W is a W. This is a 5-2 team, and this was a must-win game considering that Buffalo lost today. Like you couldn't lose this game after Buffalo dropped a game to the Jets and gave you a gift today like this. You had to walk away with a victory. And Spags, like you mentioned, you hit a very important point that Spags' second half adjustments have been great this year. Now, I will say this: how do you go into this game without a plan for Malik Willis? Malik Willis played last week. I don't care if they're saying Ryan Tannehill's playing this week and they're throwing up that smoke screen. You gotta have a plan in place for Malik Willis. And it looked like they honestly thought that Ryan Tannehill was going to play, and they had no plan for Malik Willis in the first half. Derrick Henry went off. He had what 90% of his rushing yards on the day were on 2 carries where nobody touched him.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
carry was his longest of the night, but he had another one that I think was around 30 yards.
Yeah, like I mean, it's ridiculous that you don't put any bodies on Derrick Henry. I mean, I was kind of banging the drum in my pregame prediction and on Twitter all week that I think Derrick Henry's the most overrated running back in the NFL. I think he's garbage, honestly. I think he's garbage, and I'll say it for a fact. And if you go back and watch this game film, anytime Derrick Henry gets touched below the waist, he goes down. How many times did we see in this game that a defensive back brought Derrick Henry down by himself? Why? Because you hit him below the legs. If you hit Derrick Henry's legs, he does not break a tackle. His only 2 big runs on the game, he did not get touched. Every other carry, he got hit below the waist, and he didn't get any yards. Derrick Henry is a good player, but he is not the greatest running back in the history of the world like everybody thinks he is.
I mean, maybe he's not the greatest running back in the history of the world, but you just called him garbage.
I think he's garbage. I think he's garbage.
Garbage. I mean,
he skips leg day. He skips leg day every day.
He had 115 yards and 2 touchdowns tonight, and that's his 5th straight game having 100 or more rushing yards. So I don't think Derrick Henry's
garbage tackling in the NFL doesn't make up for a garbage running back.
Well, and the Chiefs in the first half of this game were highlighted on defense by poor tackling, which continues to be an issue for them. But we got to get into Patrick Mahomes and what he did in the way. And I thought the editor-in-chief of Arrowhead Pride, Pete Sweeney, I thought he put it best on Twitter and saying after the Mahomes fourth quarter run where, you know, he gets them the touchdown, and then there's the whole 2-point thing where flags are flying, and then finally Mahomes says, screw it, I'm going to run in the 2-point conversion too. And Pete tweeted out that it was like he was an NBA superstar. Like when we see these superstars in the NBA just take over games and say, okay, I'm just going to go drop 40 tonight. I'm going to drop 50 points tonight, and we're not losing this game. Patrick Mahomes did that tonight. Like he just took over the contest and said, I'm not leaving here without a win. He talked this week. He even said that they played like ass last year when they played the Tennessee Titans. And so I think this was a personal game for him, and we saw them getting chippy in the contest. I don't think the Chiefs like the Titans. I don't think the Titans like the Chiefs. And, you know, they do pretty much play them every year now, and we saw that tonight. But it says a lot about this team to still fight back and still find a way to come out and get a victory when you didn't show up and have your best performance, where you were making mistakes and you were costing yourselves early in the game. Like Travis Kelce creates that interception by not catching a pass that he should normally catch. And he had a couple other bad plays in the game and drop passes. I think they had 6 total drop passes tonight, which was a ton. But Patrick Mahomes will make up for everything. And as long as you give him an opportunity, they're going to continue to be able to win these football games. And I think it just says a lot about where they are right now mentally, that they were able to actually like fight through all of the issues tonight and still come out with a win. Because in the first half, this was Indianapolis all over again. And I was like, they're going to lose this football game. And we're going to be like, man, this team that is supposed to be have Super Bowl aspirations is, you know, has dropped two games to the AFC South. Like what is going on? But Patrick Mahomes just said not tonight, and he would not allow it. And the Kansas City Chiefs walk away with the victory. And we had to change up the entire game plan basically on the post-game show on the fly, because Patrick Mahomes was just like, nope, we're winning this football game if it's the last thing that I do.
Just straight Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe, Steph Curry. I mean, just any of the greatest basketball players you can even think of. It was definitely one of those performances. You look at Mahomes' stat line. I mean, he had 68 pass attempts in this game. Andy and EB were just like, listen, like we're not even going to try to run the ball. We're not even going to like elude and have an illusion that we're going to run the ball. We're going to get a moving pocket. We're gonna drop back with Pat and listen. We're going to live or die by Mahomes in this game, and we're going to let him go out there and literally just will us to victory because it's a grind. And there were a few moments early in the first half where when things were getting chippy and they were kind of going toe to toe and blow for blow, where you thought there for a second when things weren't quite going our way, like do the Chiefs, are they gutty enough to win to go all 15 rounds? Can they come out on top of a physical game like this, especially when Mahomes is under duress and Mahomes is getting hit and they're having 3 and outs and they're not moving the ball and they're going backwards. And there's a few moments where like, doubt starts to creep in your mind a little bit where you're like, is this Chiefs team tough enough to win a game like this, or do the Titans have the mentality, and that's kind of the kryptonite for this Chiefs team? And then you saw as the second half wore on that the defense and Mahomes and Juju Smith-Schuster, for God's sakes, they really really just started like saying like they got tired of getting hit in the face, it felt like, and they were like, you know what, like forget this, man. And they just started swinging back, and it was awesome to watch. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I think I have an ulcer now, but it was great.
Patrick Mahomes completed passes to 11 different players tonight. that's that's insane. That's insane. You don't do that in the NFL. Like, it's the Tennessee Titans didn't have a pass completion to a wide receiver. I don't think throughout the entire contest. Yeah, they didn't. They actually did not complete a pass to a single wide receiver. Their only receptions were to tight ends. Like, that's insane. And then Patrick Mahomes is over here completing passes to 11 different players. It's just one of those performances in the pantheon of incredible Patrick Mahomes performances where we're going to be like, man, like they did everything that they could to lose that game, and at the end of the day they have Patrick Mahomes and you don't, and Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the world, and he's going to win you football games even when you don't show up with your best, and they certainly didn't do that. And it's coming off of a bye, and I understand the Ryan Tannehill situation. I still don't think that's an excuse to have this almost be a huge letdown game. And I want to get into kind of why I feel like they were struggling a little bit in the first half of this game. And even really, I mean, it was late into the fourth quarter before you felt like there was like hope offensively for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the way the Tennessee Titans played them defensively. And we talked about it on Show and BK earlier this week on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, that Tennessee game last year was kind of the first game you could point to where this is how defenses are playing the Chiefs now, and they're not giving up the big plays, and they're going to win up front with their studs along the defensive line and challenge the offensive line and put pressure on Mahomes and not give up the long ball. And so we saw them spend the rest of the season trying to adjust to that. And now what defenses are doing this season, I think we really saw it against the Las Vegas Raiders. We really saw it against the Buffalo Bills. And now we saw it again tonight against the Tennessee Titans, in that if you have a strong defensive line, we will not blitz you. We will rush forward and we will put pressure on you, and we will bank on those guys winning against your offensive line, which their defensive line was doing a ton of tonight. Patrick Mahomes got sacked several times. He was under duress. He was having to run for his life a lot, which is why he wound up with so many rushing yards and so many great plays with his legs. But this is going to continue to be an issue in how defenses are trying to play them moving forward when they've got a good defensive line, and you're going to keep going up against strong pass rushes as we move forward throughout the season. They're going to just keep rushing for it and try to win and see what Chiefs offensive line shows up, because we've seen them be great and we've seen them look terrible, and it keeps going back and forth throughout the season. And I feel like that's just going to be the case now. Like, we've got a big enough sample size to assume that this is who the offensive line is at this point. So some games are going to show up and look great. Other times they're going to get totally dominated up front. The big issue in the passing game is winning those one-on-one matchups, which they were having issues doing in the first half. And we saw them start to win some of those matchups down the stretch as, secondaries get tired, defenses wear down. Patrick Mahomes makes incredible throws like that pass to Travis Kelce that was an insane throw by Patrick Mahomes, also an incredible catch by Travis Kelce. But they didn't start making those plays until the defense was starting to get worn down, because they do have an issue right now with their wide receivers separating and getting open in one-on-one man coverage. Now, hopefully Kadarius Toney will help with that. We'll see. We got a small sample size of him, but I'm not willing to bank on that this season. But this is the blueprint to give the Chiefs problems that they can expect to see moving forward. And it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to be able to overcome that here in the near future.
Yeah, and I think that definitely the separation is an issue, but part of the other problem is how can you blame the wide receivers for not getting separation when in half of the downs, Mahomes has less than 2 seconds. They have less than 2 seconds to get separation. Their routes aren't even developing half the time because Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley are getting beat so bad on the outside. I mean, this was really, when I said earlier, this is one of those layered games, like especially from the tackle position for the Chiefs. Like there were some reps by Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley today that were the most ugly. They were the ugliest reps that you've ever seen an offensive lineman have. Like you will not find an offensive lineman with a worse rep than some of the reps that they had today, where Mahomes just got blown up because they couldn't do their job. And then you'd see like a whole 4 or 5 play series in a row where Mahomes had all day and they were just holding up great. Like it was really a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sort of situation where doesn't seem to be any middle ground with them. It's either they are like locked down doing awesome, or Mahomes is getting blown up in like half a second. And they're like, at least chip the guy and give Mahomes a little bit of time, to do his thing. And so they don't have to be this like superstar greatest tackle duo of all time, but they got to at least bring their floor up. Their floor is way too low right now for this team to be a Super Bowl contender. I mean, like this looked a lot like there was parts of this game where I was like, are we playing the Bucs in the Super Bowl right now? Because that's kind of what parts of this game looks like. Now, luckily, Mahomes' will to win was enough in this game, and the Titans literally had zero offense, I mean, in the game whatsoever. But hats off to Mahomes. This was like, you talk about like, like legacy building games. I feel like for Mahomes and against the Titans fans, by the way, have to hate Patrick Mahomes running the ball. Like every time Patrick Mahomes runs the ball against the Titans, he just ruins Titans fans' day. Like every single one of them have to just every time they see Patrick Mahomes start to run the ball, they just have to like throw their hands in the air and just like hate their lives. And that makes me very happy, if I'm going to be honest, as a Chiefs fan. I feel very good about that.
So
yeah.
It does make you wonder about the offensive line, and for some reason, Chris Collinsworth really loves Andrew Wiley. Multiple times tonight on the broadcast, unsung hero of the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, Andrew Wiley, and I don't really know where Chris was going with that. I'm assuming Chris hasn't watched a ton of snaps of Andrew Wiley this season, but he's an issue at that right tackle spot. Now we'll see if Lucas Niang comes back and is healthy, and the Chiefs want to give him a look there, but we know you're stuck with Orlando Brown on the left side, and he's looked solid at times this year, and he's really struggled at times this year. And you think about their last performance against the San Francisco 49ers, where the Chiefs offensive line stepped up and they showed up to play that day. But now I'm kind of starting to question, like, well, Nick Bosa was banged up in that game. They had other key members of that defensive line weren't available that day. And it's like, okay, was that performance because they were injured in San Francisco? And now you face this good Tennessee Titans defensive line, and they gave you issues all night long. It's going to continue to be an issue this season, but Patrick Mahomes is playing at an MVP level right now, and he's overcoming that. And so you just hope it's something you can figure out, like let's just find an in between. We can't keep having these top tier performances and then just having performances where we can't provide any type of protection for him at all. So they got to figure out how to get a little bit in between and get a little bit more inconsistency. But I want to talk about the defense too. And, aside from that second quarter where Derrick Henry just gashed them, and it seemed like, oh no, we're in for another one of these Derrick Henry nights where it's going to be a long night of him just shedding Chiefs tacklers and breaking off long runs. Well, they adjusted to that. And we already talked about Spags making those second half adjustments to having that quarterback with the much larger threat of running. And Tannehill's got some mobility too, but not the same level of mobility that a quarterback like Malik Willis has. And they made those adjustments in the second half and overtime. The Chiefs defense only allowed 22 total yards of offense, which is impressive against anybody. But again, the Titans offensively don't really bring a lot to the table. And so I was sitting here telling myself, man, I can't wait. I can't wait to get on the postgame show tonight and talk about the Chiefs secondary and how good this young group of corners look tonight. And then it's like, oh yeah, but you look at the Titans wide receiver core and it says a lot. And the fact that they don't trust Malik Willis to throw the ball. And so once they made the adjustments and they kind of tightened things up around the line of scrimmage to make things harder for Malik Willis to move around, then you saw that it was harder for Derrick Henry to find big running lanes. And so I think credit to the defense for the performance, but you still have to acknowledge the competition and the offense that they were going against tonight and a rookie third round quarterback.
Oh, you 100% have to recognize the level of competition they were going against. I mean, Malik Willis wasn't going to be a threat throwing the ball. Their wide receivers were not going to be like, you could play man coverage on the outside all day against their wide receivers. And, Bobby Trees at this point in his career just isn't going to get the separation and be able to beat man coverage, especially if he's the number one wide receiver in your offense. And he's kind of like the only, credible receiver that they currently have. And then, Malik Willis just doesn't process the game fast enough that he's going to be able to, to pass the ball down the field and score consistently. That being said, I mean, when they were able to pin their ears back and like late in the game, like you saw in overtime, when they were able to pin their ears back and just go after Malik Willis and not have to worry about Derrick Henry, then I mean, our defensive line was amazing. I mean, Carlos Dunlap, hats off, 1.5 sacks in overtime. I feel like he actually probably had like 2 half sacks and 1 full sack. And so, yeah, right here, you see it right here. And he's only a half a sack away from his 100 sack goal now. Like he is at 99.5 sacks for his career now. And where he had talked about previously how where with his late father, his goal was to get 100 sacks. He is half a sack away, and I feel like he got that half a sack in this game. I would ask the booth to review that and try to get an update on the stats. I don't know if they will, but I mean, between Carlos Dunlap and Colin Saunders and George Karlaftis, oh my gosh, Furious George showed up out of nowhere almost in overtime and had 2 or 3 really big plays, to keep pressure on Malik Willis. And so, and I mean, our secondary, you do want to talk about how our secondary showed up today. Well, I mean, I don't think there's been another team that shut down a passing team like we did tonight. I mean, our secondary did their job. Like they didn't complete any passes. And when Malik Willis would try to lob the ball up deep, they did make good plays on the ball. They got their head around and they did not get pass interference calls called against them.
Yeah, and I do want to remind you guys, as you can see scrolling across the bottom of the screen, use hashtag AP Rapid Reaction in the comment section. We'll try to get to some of your game observations at the end of the show. But I do think that what we're discussing with the defense right now, and Frank Clark was suspended tonight. He's going to be suspended next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and acknowledging that Tennessee doesn't exactly have a laundry list of playmakers at the pass catcher position, they did play well. And for as young as they are, and you expect to see some mistakes and stuff, and I know they've gotten a ton of reps to Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams. And Joshua Williams had a great tackle on Derrick Henry tonight, by the way. And then McDuffie had a couple of nice plays in coverage. And so for the most part, you just have to feel really good about this defensive performance, even if you acknowledge that Tennessee isn't exactly loaded offensively, but they did their jobs. And we saw on the final possession of overtime where Malik Willis, he holds onto the ball a little bit too long. Some of that's being a young rookie quarterback, but it's also because he had nobody open. And, he has to know, I just have to get rid of it. I just have to do something. I just have to heave it up and give somebody a chance. And he didn't do that because the Chiefs secondary was all over the place. And they
fake
really
it to Henry. Willis got nothing. In a whole mess of trouble.
And they really created those last 2 sacks in overtime. Was a lot of that was just coverage sacks because Malik Willis had nowhere to go with the ball. So coming out of this, you got to be impressed with the defensive performance in the second half. I don't know how you could be more impressed with Patrick Mahomes and him just being the best player in the world right now and him willing them to a victory. But overall, what started as one of those games where you're like, man, it's going to be this kind of frustrating night. It's going to be another kind of Indianapolis Colts game. And then to walk away with a win, you're just thrilled about that. And I'm just happy that we're sitting here talking about a Chiefs win tonight instead of just having to discuss why we're so frustrated about all of the places that they came up short tonight.
Oh, 100%. And I will just note really quick that Joshua Williams tackle when he brought down Henry in the backfield, it was an amazing tackle. But I will say, where did he tackle him at, Steven Serda? Did he tackle him above the waist or in his legs? Yeah, he hit him in his legs. Why? Because if a rookie cornerback hits Derrick Henry in his legs, he falls over and doesn't do anything because Derrick Henry skips leg day. Yes, thank you very much for putting that up there, Kramer. That is, I will beat that drum until the day I die. Derrick Henry skips leg day. He has chicken legs. He's not everything that everybody makes him out to be. But that being said, that was an amazing play by Joshua Williams. You saw that a couple other ones like that too. Like there was that play by Nick Bolton, not on Derrick Henry, where on the screen pass where he just shed the blocker and he blew it up for a 4-yard loss at a crucial time in the game on 3rd down, to cause them to punt the ball so we get the ball back to try to move down the field and score. And so I think that the defense played very good. They were very opportunistic in the way they played football today, and in the opportunities that they came up with. And so this is really, to me, this game is it's really a tale of two things. It's really great opportunistic football played by the defense and them stepping up when their number was called and when they were needed, and then Patrick Mahomes going God mode and just putting everything on his back and saying, come hell or high water, we're not going to lose this game. And then as the side note, kind of next to all this is we look at this game and we see all these opportunities where Kelsey kind of, he dropped the pass and caused an interception and a turnover. There's a couple other drops by him, but then you look at it and he had 103 yards receiving on the day. Like statistically, he had a good day. But I think if you ask Travis Kelsey, he'd probably say this is one of the worst games he's had all year, And so, and hats off, because that's kind of, it speaks to the type of player that he is, that he's not going to let himself off the hook like that. But it also speaks to our level of expectation of a player like Travis Kelsey and how lucky we are to have a Hall of Fame tight end like Travis Kelsey, where when he has a couple of bad plays and a couple of drops, we're like, oh, this is one of the worst games we've ever seen Travis Kelsey play. And he got for 100 yards and on 10 targets, right? And so, I mean, he had a pretty good game by any other measuring stick, So, I mean, I think that as Chiefs fans, sometimes our expectations are rightfully so high that when we do get a game like this, A, it's fun to watch and it's fun to get away with a victory. But then B, it's hard to win in the NFL, and this is a 5-2 team coming in tonight that we played against.
I think kind of the last thing for me before we get to some of our listener reactions is we're really seeing how important Juju Smith-Schuster is to this offense now. And, it's been building, and this is his, third consecutive game in a row now where he has really put together another strong performance. But while you can't replace the Hall of Fame caliber play of a wide receiver in Tyreek Hill, what you got in Juju Smith-Schuster is just the reliability of that possession wide receiver, of that chain mover, of he is a strong, big-bodied wide receiver who is going to be where you need him to be. If you put the ball in the right spot, he's going to make the catch because he's got really strong hands and he doesn't drop a lot of passes. And we've continued to see that. And, we were kind of wondering, is it going to be Juju? Is it going to be MVS? Is McCole going to step up? And it's clearly Juju. I never had particularly high expectations for MVS. I'm talking myself into McCole on a weekly basis now, but not as a wide receiver. I just think that McCole has found his role as an offensive weapon, and they're deploying it that way and giving him the opportunities to say, like, he's our most explosive player, but he's not our most reliable wide receiver. So we just got to get him in situations to make explosive plays. And I think they're doing a better job of doing that now. Now we'll see how Kadarius Toney really winds up fitting into this in the long run. We'll see if Sky Moore continues to develop and gets more run time throughout the entire season. And we know who Justin Watson is. He's just a guy, but he can make those big plays here and there for you offensively. But as a whole, this offense is basically committee all over the place, running back by committee, wide receiver by committee, and then it's Mahomes, Kelsey, and Juju now.
Well, and don't forget, and Noah Gray apparently today, because this was kind of the Noah Gray coming out party in the second half as well. I don't have in front of me how many catches he had, but he had 2 or 3 catches that were, including that amazing acrobatic catch where he right here that we're seeing on the screen where he bobbles it and then keeps his eyes on it and comes down with it in overtime. So to your point, yes, Juju is wide receiver number 1. Chiefs need to do whatever they can to try to extend him and keep him around, in my opinion. I think he is the most reliable of all your wide receivers. He's the guy who's going to be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there, and he's going to make that tough catch. And then otherwise beyond that, it's almost like, the rest of the offense goes through the tight ends and then sometimes to a wide receiver, which isn't bad when you have the level of pass catching tight ends that the Chiefs currently have. And with you, I agree 100% about McCole Hardman. He is an offensive weapon, and we'll leave it at that. And if you use him as an offensive weapon, he is getting better and better at growing within that specific role. I feel like, he is like where before some guys are just kind of limited in that role. And they're like, okay, I'm this one trick pony. This is what I can do. He's actually growing and kind of expanding on that weapon type of role a little bit and getting better at it. I feel like with each week, which is only a good thing and only good news for the Chiefs moving forward.
All right, Kramer, let's get to some listener comments, get your guys' reaction from the Chiefs' 20-17 overtime victory over the Tennessee Titans. How concerned are you about Harrison Butker's performance as of late? At least he hit the last one. He hit the most important one of the game. I don't think Harrison Butker's healthy. I think that's what it comes down to. It's when you're a kicker and you suffer an early season ankle injury that actually requires you to miss multiple games, I would wonder how long it's actually going to take for you to recover from that. Because an ankle injury for a kicker, it's like, okay, well, how are you supposed to practice? How are you supposed to kick field goals in practice if your ankle is hurt to the point where you have to miss time as a kicker? And so I think that's what it comes down to. And Butker's he is a really good kicker, but he's had some issues in the past with missing PATs here and there. So I don't think that's even out of the norm. I just wonder how healthy he actually is. And I just think the Chiefs were kind of tired of having this like kicker roulette and hoping for the best every time they had to kick a field goal without him. And so they just got him back on the field. But we're late in the season now through the bye week. And so if he's not healthy yet, he's probably just not going to be healthy this season. So it is a little concerning for me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely concerning, especially when you consider with a kicker, so much of the mechanics is about routine, right? And you do 2 steps to the left, 1 step to the right, and then you turn and you follow through with your foot the exact same way. It's almost like a golf swing, right? Any little hitch that you get in that golf swing, and it's going to make the ball go right or left and not where you want it to be. And so I think that if when you're kicking with pain, that's going to cause those little hitches in the mechanics, and it's going to cause it to not go quite where you want it to be. And I think that's something that like you said, he's going to be struggling with for the whole season. But then that being said, he's always kind of been the guy that's going to miss the 30-yarder and hit the 70-yarder, right? That's kind of his MO. Like he's going to hit it when it matters. And then when it's a point after attempt, or if you're up by 21 points, he's going to miss a 33-yard field goal. Like that's kind of just who he is. And I think you kind of live with that with him as your kicker a little bit to an extent.
Yeah. So to answer it, I'm a little concerned about it.
Yeah,
It
a little
might be
bit.
an issue moving forward, but at least he hit the one that really mattered tonight.
Am I not concerned?
Yeah.
No.
I think we might have only won because of Bud Dupree getting hurt. I mean, all right. You can't do anything about that. Injuries are a part of football. You just got to fight through them. It probably helped a little bit, but I'm not going to complain about it. I hope Bud Dupree is all right. Like I hope he's not. He's a guy who's dealt with some season-altering injuries in the past, so I hope he's okay for the Tennessee Titans. But if him getting hurt helped the Chiefs get over the hump in the game, that's just football.
Yeah, it is just football, and you can only play with the guys you got on the field. I mean, by the same token, you could say something like, "I think the Chiefs only won because Ryan Tannehill got hurt." That might be true, considering how bad Malik Willis was in the second half. But yeah, I mean, no apologies for being a team because their guys weren't out there. That's just the NFL.
Yeah. Where is CEH? Cut him. I vote yes. I don't know why you would cut him. I mean, you just don't have to. They're not going to pick up his 5th-year option. I mean, he's going to be on the team next season, but I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this moment is in the Chiefs' long-term plans. But I think it's been pretty evident that for a while that he's not in their long-term plans. I do wonder if they shouldn't go back to trying to get him a little bit more involved. And you also have to acknowledge tonight with the running backs and, them only accumulating for 19 rushing yards and Mahomes put up 500 himself. You also have to acknowledge that the Tennessee Titans run defense is elite. It is one of the 3 best run defenses in the NFL. So that's already something that they do better than most teams in football right now. And the Chiefs knew that. So that was obviously their game plan tonight, was just like, we're just not going to run. Like we don't think we're going to have success doing it. And so that's just not going to be a part of our game plan. And then when you get down early, you're just going to keep throwing the football because you have Patrick Mahomes. But CEH isn't in the long-term plans, but Isaiah Pacheco also hasn't really shown you anything to make you think like he's hands down should be the starting running back. He's the guy that should be in there over Clyde. I mean, Clyde's been effective this year when he's been involved in the offense, and he's made some plays for the Chiefs. And so I wonder if maybe they shouldn't go back to Clyde a little bit more. They're already in a full-blown 3 running back by committee approach. I just haven't seen anything from Isaiah Pacheco yet that tells me he should for sure be getting more reps than Clyde or Jerick McKinnon. Like, they're all just kind of dudes right now, but Clyde has at least made more plays than the other guys this season.
Yeah, I mean, Clyde had a really nice reception on 3rd down to move the chains today. I think that especially with a game like today where Mahomes he attempts 68 passes, and then we got sacked 5 other times. He dropped back to pass 73 times in this game approximately. There's not hardly any rushes to go around after that. I mean, looking at the rush attempts, Isaiah Pacheco had 5 attempts. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 4 attempts. Jerick McKinnon had 3 attempts, right? Like even if their run defense wasn't elite, that's not enough touches in a game for a running back to get into a rhythm and really kind of have like any sort of idea of how that running back is performing, on the week or on the game or anything like that. And so while I think that the Chiefs have a running back by committee because not a single one of the running backs has excelled consistently to like take the job, I don't think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is any worse than what they currently have. Are the Chiefs maybe still looking for a solution at running back? Sure, I would listen to that argument. But if you're going to talk about all three of those guys, if we're being honest with ourselves, sure, Jerry McKinnon's probably better in pass protection, and maybe he's better at receiving out of the backfield. But as a pure runner right now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is better than Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, if you're talking about handing the ball to somebody and needing yards, it's probably Clyde Edwards-Helaire is your best runner that you have on the team right now.
It's Pacheco. He definitely has pop, and he's a hard runner, and you can see that explosiveness occasionally here and there. We just haven't seen it very much yet this season because he looks like a 7th-round rookie running back. At times just doesn't seem like he's seeing the field very well. Doesn't seem like he's seeing the holes and hitting his gaps and stuff like that. And so I wonder if maybe they shouldn't just go back to Clyde because it seemed like it was working fine earlier in the season. I understand they want to see what they have in Pacheco, but I just don't feel like Pacheco's done anything to make me believe he's the answer there either. And this committee is here to stay. This is how they're going to play the rest of the season. So we'll see how it goes moving forward. But again, Chiefs win in overtime, 20-17. They improve to 6-2 on the season. They take on the Jacksonville Jaguars next week. So got the W, got the win. Chiefs are at the top of the AFC right now, tied with the Buffalo Bills after they lost today and got upset by the New York Jets. So this was a huge win for the Chiefs. Like, this was a big deal, being able to come back and seal this thing and pull this thing off. So huge win for Kansas City. If you're listening to us on the podcast, I want to remind you that we will have all of the post-game press conferences available for you immediately following the show. So make sure you stick around for that. Hear what Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, all the players had to say after the game. You can follow Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Magana. You can follow Kramer on Twitter at Kramer Talks. I'm Steven Serda. We've got plenty of stuff for you up at arrowheadpride.com. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. We've got plenty of stuff coming up for you this week ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars game. But after the Chiefs win 20-17, all that's left to say is that we will talk to you soon.